Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
Hello, Mack Pack. It's great to be back with you for another exciting episode of On the Move. I am super excited to be here. There's a lot of stuff on the agenda today. And if you're just joining us, if you've never tuned into the show before, we talk about all sorts of things here. We talk about government, philosophy. I'm a libertarian with some conservative leanings. And I talk about the politics of the day through the lens of a libertarian with conservative leanings. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. And if that's not what you're looking for, you should listen. You should probably listen, just because it'll expose you to a different point of view. If that's not your bag, baby, then maybe it ought to be. So anyway, we have a caller here on the line. Right off the bat, let's go ahead and take this call. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, am I on?
Yeah, you're on the air. What's up?
Okay, my name is Lennox. I'm calling from Las Vegas, and I had a question for you. By the way, this is going to be stuff for my school. I'm asking a question about mass shootings. Do you think that concealed carry and open carry is an effective way to stop mass shootings?
I think it's an excellent way to give people the ability to defend themselves. So if in that process, I think at a minimum it gives them a chance, a fighting chance. They may not be able to stop the shooting, but at least they're able to try to stop, and it's better than the alternative of, like, for example, in the Paris attack, there was a gentleman, I think his name was Tony Strong. He tucked his head underneath the couch in this shooting of the nightclub. Actually, I think this was in Florida. Disregard. This is in the Pulse nightclub shooting in Florida, and he tucked his head underneath the couch in that club while the shooter was going around shooting everybody, and he was laying there pretending to be dead for 30 minutes. If he would have had a gun, or if somebody else would have had a gun, at least they would have had a fighting chance. He ended up getting shot in the back several times and drug his body out to the door where a police officer rescued him. But if he had a firearm, he would have at least had a chance to defend himself. He may not have been able to stop the attacker, but at a minimum, he would have maybe deterred the attacker, made the attacker quit his attack, like what happened in the Clackamas Mall shooting. A armed concealed carry permit holder stopped that shooting. He didn't even fire a shot. He just pointed his gun at the shooter. The shooter ran away and ended up killing himself. So to answer your question, yes, I do think it can stop shootings, mass shootings, but I don't necessarily know if it will every time. It at least gives people a chance. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. But I also have another question if you have the time.
I do. What's on your mind?
Okay. Also, do you think about, what is your stance on other types of deterrence, like, for instance, the door jams, building escape plans? Do you think those are also effective ways to stop mass shootings?
I'm not sure what you mean by door jams. Just a school having door jams to prevent people from entering the room? Is that all that is?
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Something to block the door, to prevent the shooter from going further inside the building.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problems with schools having at least some forethought about what they would do in this situation. I think that can only be good. It is always a good thing to be prepared. I tend to go by the old adage, preparing or failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So in this case, again, a door jam may not necessarily stop the attacker. The attacker may already know about your countermeasures as well. What I would love to see in a school setting is any teacher who is able to get a concealed carry permit, they should be able to carry in school. That's personally my opinion. I think we should have armed teachers in our schools, and I think that is going to be the best deterrent from stopping mass shooters in schools, because these guys tend to go where people aren't armed and where people can't carry a gun. So if we get rid of the whole gun-free zone and we encourage people to carry daily, I think it does discourage mass shooters because they never know who's going to carry a gun. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that what you're talking about, yeah, I think that that's correct. And what you're saying, I also agree with. I think that by creating gun-free zones, like you said, it'd be, encouraging other people to, shoot at the school.
Absolutely. And we can look at a real-life example of that. What happened in the Orlando shooting, the Pulse nightclub shooting? The shooter, the terrorist, and let's not make any mistakes, this gentleman was a terrorist, and I'm using that word gentleman very loosely here. He initially went to Disney World or Land, one of those two, and he was going to conduct his attack there, but changed his location because of the amount of security that Disneyland had. So he ended up choosing a target that was a soft target that no one was allowed to have guns in because it was a bar and it served alcohol, and it also went with his MO as far as being a jihadist, killing homosexuals. So that right there will show you that when faced with a decision, they're going to go with the softer target. They're going to go with the target that they're more likely to do the most damage in, or possibly survive from, depending on the attack. But it doesn't make sense to me for us to disarm our law-abiding citizens, because that's the only people that are going to follow these laws are people that are law-abiding citizens. So you've made a soft target where these criminals, people with ill intent, know that they can go and they'll be the only ones that'll be armed because everyone else is following the law. And that law didn't stop them from entering that building with a gun. It just stopped everyone else who could have defended themselves against the armed attacker. Did you have any other questions?
No, thank you. That's all.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. All right, folks. So let's go ahead and let's talk about our featured topics for today. I want to move right into the show here. And by the way, I really appreciated that phone call. Thank you so much for tuning in and for asking questions. And I really like that dynamic. So today's featured topics, we're going to talk about the difference between pro-life and pro-choice. I want to talk about why I, in particular, and pro-life, and make that argument. I want to talk about some news of the day. Donald Trump has promised to cut regulation by 75%. Kellyanne Conway has said that Donald Trump and the media have to share joint custody of the nation. This is a little bit of an old clip, but it missed my attention, so I would love to talk about this. And then the news of the day in particular, Donald Trump has barred the door for refugees and visitors from 7 nations, mainly majority Muslim nations, and the left is losing their mind over this. And if you're watching the news right now, I'm sure they're talking about something like that. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Anything that you would like to talk about is also on the table. Please feel free to give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. You can also get us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow or message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. And I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to the 405media.com. We simulcast the first hour of the program over there. Big shout out to 405 Media. Also, youthrevolt.org. Youthrevolt.org. We do the whole show over there as well, so check those guys out. Both the 405 Media and youthrevolt.org. They are all doing some excellent stuff, so show them your support. And also, if you've never tuned into the show, let me just give you a heads up, give you the spiel here. We broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. Click the shop link on there. You can see all of our original designs made for you by us. Anything that you purchase on the store there is going to help, get the program bigger. It's going to help pay for our overhead fees, like hosting fees, all that stuff. Also, microphones, equipment, camera equipment, that kind of stuff. So it'll help us make us bigger and better, that kind of stuff. So and don't forget to like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. And so we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive right into these featured topics, folks. So you don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mack Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our home page. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On The Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On The Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
All right, we're back. So I want to dive right into the featured topic. This episode is titled "Life is Winning in America." And this is episode 151 of On the Move with Mack Worley. Of course, I am your host, Mack Worley III. Let's dive right in. All right, so you may be familiar with the Life for March, the 2017 Life for March that we just recently saw. There was a lot of people at this march. There's people debating whether or not the march had more people in attendance than the Women's March, which was co-opted by the left into a mosh posh of a whole bunch of different things, not even necessarily relating to women's rights. But I digress. So I have an article here on thefederalist.com. They were talking about 13 things that they saw at the Washington, D.C. March for Life. And this was the 45th annual March for Life that was conducted. And the media has typically not talked that much about the support for this movement. And in fact, even for this year, even though Mike Pence and this was making the news, they would rather cover the anti-Donald Trump protests. Again, this is a thing now. This is the thing we're going to be seeing. I remember me telling you a while back ago, by the way, that the Code Pink people on the left, the anti-war activists, they've all been pretty silent during the Obama administration. They all but pretty much went away. But I suspect that that's going to be a new thing, and it's going to overlap with this illegitimate President Donald Trump rioting that's going on, and the left is just ratcheting it up. They just continue to ratchet it up. But anyway, back to this pro-life thing. This pro-life march, 44th annual March for Life. And here's the article. It's on thefederalist.com. 13 things we saw at the March for Life in Washington, D.C. Number one, they saw lots of people. Here's a post by Lila Rose. This is on Twitter. We are the pro-life generation. Love seeing so many at the March for Life. Hashtag retweet this amazing time lapse. So you can see all the people in the video there. How many people showed up to the march on the time lapse. Number two, they saw Vice President Mike Pence. Pence was the first vice president to attend the annual March for Life. You can watch his full remarks at the video here, but I happen to have a little clip from him. So let's go ahead and play what Pence said at the Life for March.
And it's the best day I've ever seen for the March of Life in more ways than one. I'm deeply humbled to stand before you today. Deeply humbled to be the first Vice President of the United States to ever have the privilege to attend this historic gathering. More than 240 years ago, our founders wrote words that have echoed through the ages. They declared these truths to be self-evident, that we are, all of us, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And then among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 44 years ago, our Supreme Court turned away from the first of these timeless ideals. But today, 3 generations hence, because of all of you and the many thousands who stand with us in marches like this all across the nation, life is winning again in America. That is evident in the election of pro-life majorities in the Congress of the United States of America. But it is no more evident in any way than in the historic election of a president who stands for a stronger America, a more prosperous America, and a president who I proudly say stands for the right to life, President Donald Trump.
So look, I've had my beef with Donald Trump, as you all may well be aware of. But, you know, I'm actually pretty satisfied right now with his perceived position on the right to life, on being pro-life. This is coming from Donald Trump, who in the past has been pro-choice all the way up to and including partial birth abortions, which I find to be completely immoral and abhorrent. But I'm hoping that he is actually a pro-life guy. So let me talk about the differences here. If we're going to talk about pro-life, what I feel like is always escaping the conversation somehow is the differences between pro-life and pro-choice. And I feel like in this segment here, I really want to nail down the differences here. So we'll go ahead and enter into a Mack attack. Here we go.
It's time for the Mack attack!
Pro-life, pro-choice, so many things out there. What do they all mean? Well, let's break it down. All right, so first and foremost, let's look at the most extreme iterations of each belief. Okay, pro-life, you can absolutely, under no circumstance, have an abortion. No circumstance whatsoever. Pro-choice, you can have an abortion whenever you want, up to and including, you know, if your kid's just getting on your nerves, you can just kill him. You can off the kid, all right? It's your kid. You made him. You can do whatever you want. This is pro-choice, okay? Now, granted, I'm setting up kind of a straw man argument there, but let's be real. Let's say up to the minute of birth, pro-choice people think, hey, it's your body. You should be able to do what you want with it. That's the argument. It's your body, your choice. You have a right to choose what you do with that body. And they take into consideration only your body, not the body of the individual inside of you if you're pregnant, and that's it. So the question between pro-life and pro-choice, again, at one end of the spectrum, you have the most extremes, okay? And then there's minutia. There's always differences in the middle, but I have to point out that anyone who believes in any form of restriction whatsoever on abortion. So if you think that partial birth abortions are wrong, if you think that it's immoral to kill a baby if it can survive outside the womb on its own, if you think it's immoral for a mother to have an abortion 2 seconds before the baby's about to be born, if you think that is immoral, and you think that there ought to be some protections afforded to that child inside the woman, then you are pro-life. If you believe in any restrictions at all on abortion whatsoever, you're pro-life. You may not realize it. You may be calling yourself pro-choice. You may say, oh, I just don't agree with partial birth abortions. Well, you're pro-life then. At some point, you've decided that the government should step in to protect the life of another individual. We're just arguing about where that line starts. I know so many people who I've had conversations with, and I've really been trying to talk with a lot of people about this, about their stance on this issue. I think that saying pro-choice is incredibly deceptive because most people think, they're not thinking about the most extremes on that end. But if you're following the argument to its logical conclusion, if you as a woman who are pregnant, you have the only say in whether or not that life is valuable while it's inside your womb. That's not right. More importantly, we now with modern medicine, modern technology, we have the ability to tell what's going on inside that stomach, inside that womb. We can see, we can hear the heartbeat. We know it starts at week 6. So the question is, at what point is that human alive? Now, many in the pro-choice movement, they think that it's at conception, and it very well may be. I don't know when life begins. I think that's something that only if there is a God, only a God would know. I have no idea. I can certainly see how the argument could be made that life begins at conception. I could see that argument, and it makes sense. My issue is when are we going to draw the line here? At what point is that baby, is that human being inside the other human being? I get it. There's two people here that we have to think about. Okay, we have to think about the mother, and we also have to think about the child. At what point are we supposed to use government to protect that life? The life of the child. At no point is it just when the baby's born? Because the only difference there is where the baby is. And really, if the value of that baby is only given to us by the mother, if the mother's the only one that can give value to that baby, and if the mother doesn't value that baby, what difference does it make if the mother, let's say, wanted to kill the baby 5 minutes after it was born? What difference does that make if the value we give to that child is only based on what that mother wants? Is that still murder? What pro-life believers or what pro-life people think is that it is murder to kill a child inside the womb. And they believe that child is alive. I don't know where life begins. I make no qualms about that. But I do think that the argument could certainly be made that life begins at 6 weeks of a fetus when the heart starts to beat. I think that's a pretty reasonable argument. But I think another argument that I have made in the past, and again, these are the gray areas of minutia, is again, remember, the government was created. The entire purpose that the government was created was to protect life, liberty, and property. That's it. Life, liberty, and property. So, obviously, protecting life falls underneath the purview of the government. So, where are we going to start drawing the line of when people can get abortions? Should we? I argue we should, because that's part of their job. At some point, that child is alive. I think, at a minimum, a reasonable thing to do for a society is if that baby can survive outside the womb, it ought not be aborted. We're talking about late-term abortions, which, by the way, the majority of Americans think is abhorrent. So there is a ton, even of the pro-choice people out there, they don't necessarily believe in late-term abortions, which, again, makes them pro-life. So this whole argument has gotten so confused and off topic. Pro-life is if you believe that there should be some restrictions on abortion at some point. Pro-choice is no restrictions at any point because that woman can do what she wants with her body. They don't recognize that human life inside the woman until it's out. And then who knows if they'll recognize it. So again, why am I pro-life? So, personally, let me tell you what I would prefer as a societal way of doing things here. And I don't like to use force. I don't want to. Again, I live my whole philosophy here, my whole life by the non-aggression principle. Don't hurt others, don't take their stuff. That is essentially what my entire philosophy boils down to. So when looking at a mother with let's say a 3-month-old child in her stomach, okay, the baby's not born yet. I think at some point this baby does need to be protected. I don't think that it's right to just allow that mother to kill the baby. And I wouldn't think that that was right if it was outside the womb either, because I think it's murder. I think it is murder. Now, I don't think that everyone who's ever killed a baby through abortion, I don't think that they're bloodthirsty murderers. I think they're misled, honestly. And I understand it's a tough decision, but I think that if we as a society, let me just point out, one of the big arguments that the pro-choice people make, because there's been 52 million people that have been aborted, 52 million people that have been aborted. That's more than the Holocaust. That's more than dictators around the world that have killed a lot of people. So, I mean, this is on Holocaust levels. 52 million people. One of the big arguments that the left makes is they compare the abortion rate with the drop in crime rate, and they basically say that our society's better because children who aren't wanted aren't being born, and therefore they're not going into a life of crime and yada yada yada. And my problem with this argument is that if killing people is justified, if there's a drop in crime, then why don't we just kill our prisoners? Why don't we just execute all of our prisoners? Because that's immoral and it's wrong. So it doesn't justify. Even if, let's say, the economy, the GDP was boosted because of abortions. And again, let's also be clear: correlation does not mean causation. That's a very common scientific term. Just because there's a correlation between two stats doesn't mean that they cause one another to happen. So. But let's just say, for example, let's say, aborting 100 babies a year per capita does something awesome to the economy and makes everyone filthy rich. It's still immoral. It's immoral to do that. The ends do not justify the means. This is a progressive mantra. They never let a good crisis go to waste. These are the kind of things that these guys like to use, and they have no qualms about how they get what they want done. They just want to do what they want. So don't look at how they get their job done. Just look at the results. And again, if you do focus on the results, you're going to find that the numbers that they give you are cooked, and typically you're actually a lot worse off following these policies, these progressive policies. But I digress. So we're going off in the weeds a little bit here. So let's see here. Personally, I would not have an abortion if I was a woman. I wouldn't want my woman to have an abortion. I would man up and just take care of that baby. That's what I would do. Even if it was a mistake, all right? Even if you didn't intend to get somebody pregnant, you made a decision to have relations with somebody, and now you have to take personal responsibility for your actions. Just because you didn't take the proper precautions, or you got pregnant and those precautions failed, that doesn't make you let you off the hook, and it also doesn't give you the right to kill anyone, i.e. the baby inside your stomach. So personally, I would prefer no abortion. Personally, if it were up to me, which, thank goodness it's not. But if it were up to me, I would just have abortion limits as far as I don't really know. I mean, again, I don't know where life begins. I would really just love to see only in the case of saving the mother's life, or rape or incest, and even I'm susceptible to arguments on both sides for those. So look, I just don't want to see babies aborted. I think it's wrong. I believe we are killing a human being in that process, and we ought to not do that. So, should there be any limits? And let me ask you, Mack Pack, I know typically we are going to be siding, for the most part, with a lot of the people on the right. And I know most of the people in my audience are probably right-leaning, pro-life, or maybe pro-choice. I know there's some of you out there, and I know there's pro-choice libertarians out there too. Libertarian Party is split on this issue. But I just can't help but think of how many people we've killed. It's an unfathomable amount. 52 million. How many great people have we killed? How many Einsteins have died in an abortion? How many professional ball players? How many businessmen that would have created jobs? How many businesswomen who would have created jobs? How many world changers? How many Dr. Martin Luther Kings have we extinguished through abortion? And this is the one thing I don't understand from the left. You know, you side with Black Lives Matter, but yet you're pro-choice. And the majority of abortions are from black children. In New York City, there were more black babies aborted than born. In New York City. So I don't know where life begins, but I do know that the heart beats at 6 weeks old, or 6 weeks in the womb. So I can see that being a great place. Here's the thing, you know, limiting how long you have to get an abortion, I don't see a problem with that. You have 6 weeks to get an abortion. If you've been having, you know, if you haven't been taking precautions. I mean, we have things like the morning after pill. We have condoms. We have birth controls. If you still are getting pregnant at this point, you've made decisions. And even if your birth control, your contraception has failed, you still made the choice. I personally don't think that most people who have a child feel like they're being punished with that child, as I believe that was our First Lady, if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe it wasn't. Somebody on the left said that a woman shouldn't be punished with a child. I don't know how many mothers are out there right now listening to me, but do you feel like you were punished with your children? You know, I don't care if my kid. Remember, I don't have any kids here. Okay, I don't have any kids yet. If I accidentally had a kid, if I wasn't expecting to have a kid out of it, I'm not just going to not take responsibility for that. That was my decision, my choice. But I digress. So anyway, I mean, this is why I am pro-life, because I just think that life is important to protect. First of all, I think when it comes to abortion, at some point, that baby does have rights. At some point, it's alive. It's for us to distinguish when that is. We may be arbitrary in that distinguishing, you know, when life begins. No matter what we do, it's going to be an arbitrary time. Whether or not it's at 6 weeks, you know, when the baby's born, at conception, it doesn't matter. No matter what we say, it will be arbitrary. It will just be us selecting it. And that's the business of the day. To determine if there should be any limits whatsoever, have this conversation. And I think the vast majority of Americans would support some limits on abortion. It shouldn't just be, and then more importantly, it shouldn't be paid for by someone else. You're failing to take responsibility on two fronts now. You failed to take proper steps, precautions to not get pregnant in the first place. The very first one, namely, is abstinence. If you don't want to have a child, you shouldn't have sex. I mean, if there's a possibility that you can get pregnant, you shouldn't do it if you don't want to. So that's your first failure to take responsibility. The second one, if you're being subsidized, if somebody is paying for your abortion, you're not taking responsibility for your own mistakes. Pay for your own damn abortion. It's not right to force people to pay for something that they have a fundamental disbelief in, that they do not approve of. It's wrong to use the coercive force to take government and take those taxes and use it for abortions. Half the population is pro-life. Half the population disagrees with that. It's wrong. And let me just state this one thing for the record here. If you are pro-choice, first of all, I don't intend to disrespect you. You're entitled to your opinions, and I hope that you'll voice them here on our show. Please give us a call. The number of the show is 360-450-5625, 360-450-5625. You have every right to your opinion, but let me just ask you: is it okay to just abort a baby all the way up into and including when it's born? Is that okay? Because if it's not, then you're not really pro-choice. If at some point you believe that baby, that fetus, that clump of cells should be protected, then you believe that it's alive, and you believe that life has rights. So just stew on that. Think about it for a bit. Anyway, we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we get back, we're going to move into the rest of our show's featured topics. I want to talk about how Donald Trump promises to cut regulation by 75%. I want to play a clip here from Kellyanne Conway saying that Donald Trump and the media have to share joint custody of the nation. And then I want to move into how Trump has barred the door to refugees and visitors from 7 mainly Muslim nations. We'll be right back after this break, folks. You don't want to go anywhere.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mack store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
All right, we're back. So we got some activity on Twitter. Natasha, she's messaging us. She says she sees 3 different types: pro-choice, pro-life, and pro-birth. While I'm pro-choice, I don't think it's okay at 8 months. Okay. And look, again, you're completely entitled to your opinion. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. But I would just point out, again, if you don't think it's okay at 8 months, then you're not necessarily pro-choice, because a woman should be able to do what she wants with her body. It's her right to choose, right? According to that argument, you're pro-choice. If you're pro-life, you're saying that at some point we should be protecting that life. That's my only point. She has a question for me. She says, for which reason would you be okay with having an abortion? What if the fetus is stuck in the fallopian tubes? Or if the mother would die before the fetus can survive outside the womb? Okay, so this is a great question, Natasha. Thank you so much for this question. First of all, let's look at it through the non-aggression principle. Don't hurt anybody else. Don't take their stuff. Okay. In the instance of some kind of issue where it's putting the life of the mother in jeopardy, I think that it's reasonable to have an abortion in this instance. First of all, I think it's despicable. Where I've read some stories about countries that, I can't remember, this was a long time ago, countries that would not allow a woman to have an abortion when she was going to die from her pregnancy. And I just think, first of all, that's wrong. It's immoral to make somebody force somebody into that situation where they know they're going to die by having that child. If personally, if I'm put in a situation where it's my life or the life of an unborn baby, especially if you don't know if that baby is going to survive in the process, it could be 50-50. Personally, I think it should be allowed to have somebody have an abortion in that instance. In the situation of rape, incest, life of the mother, I don't like it, but I can understand why someone wouldn't want to live with that. And personally, I don't blame them. I think if we're going to get technical here, let's look at the philosophy here. The baby threatening your life would be an act of aggression. Nah, I don't really like that. But still, regardless, you have a right to your life, and you have a right to choose at that point whether or not you want to put your life at risk for a child or not. I just don't think it's right, and I think it would end up leading to some unintended consequences, like women trying to have their own abortions in order to save their life, and probably take the life of both of them in the process. Now, that's an extremely dire circumstance where somebody's trying to stay alive. I don't necessarily know that outlawing abortion entirely or putting restrictions on it is going to make this crazy underground market on it. By the way, Natasha, she also mentions that most women actually learn that they are pregnant between 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. All right. I mean, again, like I said, the timeline that I'm specifying here, the 6 weeks, that's just when the heart beats. So, personally, I think that the responsibility here starts in the initial stages. You're not, unless you're, immaculately getting pregnant, you've done something. You've made a choice to get pregnant. So let's see here. She also says, if the woman is forced to keep the baby, the man should be forced to stay. I never said anything about forcing the woman to keep the baby. There's a difference between forcing a woman to have a baby and forcing a woman to keep it. Now, you can put your baby up for adoption, and there's lots and lots of Americans who are looking for babies to adopt. It's actually so difficult to adopt here in our nation that a lot of people look overseas to adopt. We've got kids here, and I think we should be streamlining that process of adoption, and I think it should be encouraged. I know there's a lot of people out there that would want to take babies that would have been adopted. In fact, I know of many stories of people entering into a abortion facility, an abortion clinic, and being told from people outside that they'll take their baby. So, look, I know that's anecdotal evidence at best, but the point is that there are people who would be willing to take it. If you don't want that child, you don't have to kill it. Just for example, if I just didn't want my dog, all right, I don't just have a right to just kill my dog. That's wrong. That's an immoral thing to do. Even though, yes, technically it is my property, animals do have some rights. So, we shouldn't be treating these animals, completely heartly. So, look, I'm not an animal activist or, a vegan or a vegetarian by any means. Some animals are food, and we eat those animals. But a pet, if I didn't want this pet anymore, I don't have a right to just kill it. I can get rid of it. I can give it away to somebody else. I can put it to a shelter, but I shouldn't just kill it. And if I did that, that's an immoral act. That's something that is not moral. See, I don't think that you have a right as a woman, if you don't want your child, to kill it. And again, I don't think that life of the child, that its only value is given to it by its mother. The life itself is inherently value. Its value is innate in that it is alive. If See, here's the thing, too, the flip side of that coin. If, let's say, a drunk driver slams into a car and kills a mother and her baby inside the womb, that person is charged with a double homicide. But he's only charged with that because the woman valued that life. That life was inside of her. She gave it value, so now he's being charged with a double murder. But because she doesn't give it value and she chooses to have an abortion, suddenly it's okay because we're going solely off of the value given to that baby by the mother. And I just disagree. I think that life is worth more than just what the mother values it. If the mother doesn't have any value for that life, I think that life still holds value. This is all I'm saying. And you know, I understand. I get the whole 6 to 8 weeks thing. You know, if you don't find out that you're pregnant between 6 to 8 weeks, okay, there ought to be some limitations, right? That we ought to protect that unborn baby at some point, right? But I digress. Anyway, let's see. Natasha says there's Americans who say the same thing. Not a law, but that thinks this way. I prefer women having a safe and clean abortion at 8 weeks, and then banning it and going in a back alley and infections and die. Holy cow. Okay. Well, look. You know, no matter what you ban, if you ban anything, there will be a underground, unregulated black market that will pop up because when there's a demand, somebody's going to supply that demand. So you're going to have unreputable doctors who are performing abortions for people. That will happen. And in this instance, look, the woman is. If you believe that abortion is the act of killing another human being, the woman is trying to kill somebody, and if she dies in the process, look, it's unfortunate, but she shouldn't be breaking the law. She shouldn't be trying to hurt somebody. But look, I mean, I'm more black and white than most people are on this issue. So, but again, there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray in this. I personally just think that we should be protecting that life at some point. And look, in the case of incest, rape, the life of the mother, I don't have any issues with that. I think that we should put some limits on it somewhere. My personal philosophy has been for a while, anytime that fetus can survive outside the womb, especially with technology. Because as technology advances, we're going to get better and better at keeping these babies alive sooner and sooner. And that arbitrary timeline that we have created is going to get pushed further and further back. And if the mother can have the baby, she should give it away if she doesn't want it. There are people who will want to take that baby. That's my only point. But anyway, let's go ahead and switch gears. Let's talk about another topic here. Donald Trump has promised to reduce regulations by 75%. That is crazy. Here's a clip.
What we're doing is we are going to be cutting taxes massively for both the middle class and for companies. When somebody wants to put up a factory, it's going to be expedited.
So he's trying to cut these taxes here, these regulations. I think this is overall going to be a good thing. I want to see the implementation of this. I really want to see what he's going to do. He's talking about new pipelines, talking about the Keystone XL. He's actually going to be pushing that, which is a good thing. It's going to mean American jobs. I know a lot of these protesters out there don't like that, and the Dakota pipeline, by the way. But again, the environmentalists are really spooling up here against Donald Trump. So, I mean, I think it's important for us to take care of the environment. We obviously need to protect the environment. I'm not for just dumping oil into streams and just destroying the environment, but it doesn't make any sense for us to restrict ourselves on, for example, carbon. All right, carbon dioxide. It is a theory that carbon dioxide is heating up the planet because it's trapping the heat from the sun inside the atmosphere and raising the temperature. But there's no correlation. They can't come up with any kind of mathematical equation that can tell you how many parts per million of carbon you enter into the atmosphere will increase the Earth's temperature by X. There's no formula because they don't know. And every time they plug this theory into their computer models, the computer models have been wrong. So they have to adjust the computer models, and then they're wrong again, and they adjust, and then they're wrong again. So we can't trust this theory. And it doesn't make sense for us to assume that we are the ones that are causing the climate to change. All right? It doesn't make any sense considering we can't prove that carbon is the one causing the Earth to change. This is all a theory. And it's unsubstantiated, really. So what these environmentalists are wanting to do is to restrict our economy, restrict industry so that we can't be productive, we can't be effective and competitive on the global market, which is not something that I think that we should do based on a theory. So I got an article here. This is on apnewsarchive.com. Environmentalists preparing to battle Trump and GOP in court. The article is dated January 29th. That's today. And it's written by Tammy Weber and John Flesher. The night before Donald Trump's inauguration, 5 environmental lawyers filed a federal court briefing defending an Obama administration clean water rule that the new president and his Republican allies have targeted for elimination, considering it burdensome to landowners. The move served as a warning that environmentalists facing a hostile administration and a Republican-dominated Congress are prepared to battle in court against what they fear will be a wave of unfavorable policies concerning climate change, wildlife protection, federal lands, and pollution. Advocacy groups nationwide are hiring more staff lawyers. They're coordinating with private attorneys and firms that have volunteered to help. They're reviewing statutes, setting priorities, and seeking donations. It's going to be all-out war, said Vermont lawyer, school professor Patrick Parenteau. If you're an environmentalist or a conservationist, this is indeed a very scary time. Trump's first week in office only highlighted their anxieties. He moved to resume construction of the Keystone XL and Dakota Access Pipeline that the Obama administration had halted, while signaling intention to abandon his predecessor's fight against global warming, vastly expand oil and gas drilling on public lands, and slash Environmental Protection Agency's budget. GOP lawmakers, meanwhile, introduced measures to overturn a new Interior Department rule barring coal mining companies from damaging streams and to remove some wolves from the endangered species list. They've wasted no time in doing bad things, said Pat Gallagher, director of Sierra Club's 50-member legal team, which he said is likely to grow as environmentalists increasingly regard the courts as their best option, even though success there is far from certain. And also keep in mind, folks, this is me speaking now, that Obama has used the nuclear option in the Senate. You know how they killed the filibuster? Remember how I've been saying bring back the filibuster? We ought to be doing this. We ought to be bringing back the filibuster, establishing more checks and balances, giving the minority the ability to block government. This is only a good thing. I know it's important for Republicans to get things done, but we really ought to be careful about this because they did this to us. They shoved things down our throat. So all it's going to do is to breed division and to swing that pendulum. Again, the pendulum is already swinging away from the right. And next election, or maybe in 8 years, who knows where it will lead. I hope that we take this time to dismantle the government power structure. That way, nothing can be shoved down anyone's throat. Anyway, the article continues. The Department of Justice, which represents the federal government in environmental lawsuits, declined to comment. While the White House did not respond to emails seeking comment, Doug Erickson, communications director for Trump's transition team at the EPA, said the environmentalists that said of the environmentalists that he's not sure what they think they're preparing for, but suspects they are stoking fear of Trump as a fundraising tool. So obviously environmentalists are back in action. Soon it'll be the Code Pink guys as we start to go into the Middle East and other places, as I suspect this regime will do. So Natasha on Twitter, she says pipelines break all the time. One happened days ago on someone's land and on the ice of a stream. What if it wasn't winter? So that it would go into the water. Okay, look, accidents are going to happen, and I mean, I don't think that this is malicious, and I obviously think that we should take measures to protect and make sure that those accidents don't happen. But just because some accidents happen doesn't mean that we should just stop all production, all industry. We should just limit and ban it. For example, what Hillary Clinton and Obama have tried to do and have been doing is shutting down coal mines. Look, the coal, yes, it produces carbon dioxide. They call it carbon because they want to make it sound dirtier. It makes you think of coal and like the soot that's on coal. That's not what carbon is. Carbon dioxide is. Carbon dioxide is a odorless, colorless, tasteless gas. It doesn't kill you. It's plant food. So I personally, look, I understand that there are going to be instances, and let's also look at one instance here. The EPA, they flooded that river in Colorado with orange crap, all these chemicals and stuff like that. Oops, they made a mistake. And it was the government who did it. So, again, if the government wasn't the ones in the process, if that was a private company, they'd be liable for that. Since the government did it, no big deal. Just the government, just the EPA. Look the other way. We're the Environmental Protection Agency, and we've just poisoned a river for everybody in Colorado. So my point here is that, look, accidents are going to happen. Personally, I would rather a private company be responsible, on the hook, if they do cause an accident. And I think the free market has its own answers to a bad actor in the free market. If me personally, for example, this is what I did after the BP oil spill. I stopped buying gas at BP. Now, granted, I know there's a lot of illusion of choice. You may think you're getting, your gas from another place, and you might be thinking you're getting your gas from a competitor, but you're really getting it from the same umbrella corporation. So overall, they still are profiting. Same thing when it goes to food. We have an illusion of choice when it comes to food. But we do have options. We can research. We can find out who the competitors are and stop doing business at companies who are doing things we don't like. If you don't like that somebody's pipelines are breaking on someone's land, then you can boycott that company, and that company will feel that pain. And if companies are causing damage on people's land, then they're going to be held civilly liable for that damage that they've caused on people's land. At that point, they're going to pay. How many times would you think that they're going to allow that to happen before they fix the problem because they don't want to pay money? Okay. So again, I think that the free market answer is better than restricting people from doing things. I'm a free market guy, so that's where I stand on that. So let's move on. Donald, like I said, we talked about Donald Trump and his pushing for 75% less regulation. If that actually happens, that would be something else. 75%. Oh, and the hiring freeze. Did you guys hear about that? The hiring freeze that Donald Trump has just done on bureaucrats in the government. He, unless it's like it's a case by case situation. There are some exceptions to it if they are critical or something like that. They have some exceptions to hiring freeze. But for the most part, if somebody quits, they can't hire anyone to replace it. And this is basically a stopgap to try to actually go after this bureaucracy, this big self-licking ice cream cone that Buck Sexton of The Blaze always talks about. The bureaucracy. It is another branch of government. It is a behemoth, a hydra that if you cut one head off, another one will prop out of. So, or another two will pop up. So, you have to address this. The government is so big. We have too many regulations, too many federal and government employees. You are not the justification of your job. Your job needs to do something to benefit us. And again, the only three legitimate purposes of government are to protect life, liberty, and property. If you're not doing any of those three things, especially if you're acting against those three things, you shouldn't have your government job. It's my opinion. Anyway, we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to join up with the rest of our feature topics here. I want to play a clip here from Kellyanne Conway talking about how Donald Trump and the media have to share joint custody of the nation. You guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mack store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bare Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
Okay, that was weird. For some reason, my commercials didn't load there. That was strange. Anyway, we're back from break. This is a weird intro. Just no music. Just come straight back. Very strange. Anyway, we're just going to get right back into it here. So I want to play a clip here of Kellyanne Conway saying that that Donald Trump and the media have to share joint custody of the nation. And here's a clip.
Josh, tell us what's going on in the press. I mean, traditionally, presidents summon in the mainstream media, TV anchors like Trump did yesterday, and essentially they bury the hatchet. And it doesn't sound like, from the cover of my New York Post right here, that that's exactly what transpired yesterday.
Well, he buried a hatchet.
Well, he buried a hatchet in the backs of most of the major TV anchors. But what was the purpose of the meeting, and did it go off like it was intended to?
I have a different view of the meeting, having sat there and having helped to organize it. I actually thought it was a very lively, spirited exchange.
There's no debate on that, right?
Well, but from my perspective, it's very simple. President Trump and the media have to share joint custody of the nation and its people for the next 4 or 8 years. So it's highly productive and in everyone's interest to find a way to do that. Obviously, it was a very hard-fought, long campaign.
Yeah. Okay, so this, I think, is a fundamental difference between statists and the pro-liberty crowd. Statists believe that the government is your daddy. The statists believe that the government is your Uncle Sam, your Alpha and your Omega. They pray at the altar of the state. That's what statists do. And again, I've argued that Donald Trump has shown a tendency to be a statist progressive. I believe that's what he is. Many people will disagree with me, and that's fine. I think this statement from Kellyanne Conway is first of all, I think there's multiple things happening here. Okay, Donald Trump in the past, I've talked about his tactics. He has a tactic of basically attacking people who don't go along or who counter his narrative or who he doesn't like. Or who asks him tough questions in the case of Megyn Kelly. Donald Trump has the tendency of doing that tactic, of attacking people who are critical of him. Another one of his tactics, another one of the things that Donald Trump does is to try to befriend people who disagrees with him. So he tries to convince you to join his side, basically, or to buy you, or to win you over in some way. And I think that what Donald Trump is trying to do is to hand an olive branch in a roundabout way to the media in this instance, saying that we have joint custody. He's acknowledging that the media is apparently important in this instance. However, I disagree with the sentiment, and I do believe that it shows a little bit of statism. And I don't know if this is Kellyanne Conway's or if this is Donald Trump himself, or if this was a message that they wanted to put forward. I can't help but believe that they're not having a conversation about this talking point of sharing joint custody of a nation, of how excited she seemed and happy she seemed to say it. It seems like this is something that they were working on. So sharing joint custody. Well, let me just say, Donald Trump, you're not my daddy. All right? You're not in charge of me. All right? You are actually a public servant. So you actually work for me. You work for everyone else. All right? In the nation. We all are your boss. All right? You don't have custody of me. You're not responsible for me. In fact, we're responsible for you. I think this is the fundamental difference here between statists and people who believe in liberty, is that, again, the statists believe that the government is your daddy. They are responsible for you. They're supposed to take care of you instead of the other way around. But I digress. Anyway, so that's Kellyanne Conway. I'm curious what you guys have to say about it. Hit me up on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow, or you can message me on Facebook, facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. I want to talk a little bit here about this ban, this immigration ban that the left is losing their minds about here. So I got an article here by Reuters. This is titled "Trump Bars Door to Refugees, Visitors from 7 Mainly Muslim Nations." So let's go and read the article. It's written by Emily Stevenson and Eric Neck. The article, by the way, is dated today, January 29th. I almost said June. Okay, so 5 Iraqi passengers and 1 Yemeni were barred from boarding an Egyptian Air flight from Cairo to New York on Saturday after President Donald Trump halted the entry of citizens from 7 Muslim-majority countries, sources at Cairo Airport said. The passengers arriving in transit to Cairo Airport were stopped and redirected to flights headed for their home countries despite holding valid visas, the sources said. Trump on Friday put a 4-month hold on allowing refugees into the United States and temporarily barred travelers from Syria and 6 other Muslim-majority countries, saying the moves would help protect Americans from terrorist attacks. He said his most sweeping use of his presidential powers since taking the office a week ago, barring travelers from the 7 nations for at least 90 days, will give his administration time to develop a more stringent screening procedure for refugees, immigrants, and visitors. I'm establishing a new vetting measure to keep radical Islamic terrorists out of the United States of America. Don't want them here, Trump said earlier on Friday at the Pentagon. We only want to admit those into our country who will support our country and love deeply our people. The bans, though temporary, took effect immediately. We had a ad pop up there. Sorry about that. The bans, though temporary, took effect immediately, causing havoc and confusion for would-be travelers with passports from Iraq, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. Iran, Libya, Iraq, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. Let's see. There's some places that are interestingly missing from this list. No Saudi Arabia. That's interesting, considering that the spouse of the San Bernardino shooter, the husband there, the woman, the wife, she was an immigrant from, you guessed it, Saudi Arabia. Took part in a mass shooting here, a terror attack here in America. Also, let's also mention Afghanistan. Afghanistan, there's none on this list. Or is Afghanistan okay? Is it all right to bring those people in? So interesting. So it's not just Muslim nations. So let's just look at this. Let's eyeball this. Why why do you think that Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia aren't on this list? Well, I can tell you one thing. I know for a fact that Saudi Arabia is not going to be put on this list unless Donald Trump is actually dismantling the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia exclusively sells their oil in U.S. dollars, and that allows us to create the whole petrodollar system, which is essentially just a big Ponzi scheme and scam, which allows us to keep all this foreign money out and foreign economies, foreign bank accounts, and allow us to digitize and create new money and flood our economy with all sorts of money, which would have an inflationary effect, but the money's kept overseas, so we don't really see it. But if we dismantled the petrodollar, if, for example, we started causing problems between us and Saudi Arabia, not that there's not issues to take with Saudi Arabia, being that most of the 9/11 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia and yada yada yada. Again, the whole Sharia law, the civil rights abuses of their people. But if we did start having a rift between Saudi Arabia and they start selling their oil in something other than U.S. dollars, then at that point, all these U.S. dollars that are out there in foreign bank accounts would come flooding back into our economy. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars, and we would see hyperinflation, where it costs like $100,000 for a loaf of bread or something along those lines. You get the drift. We're seeing this in Venezuela, where their GDP dropped 18.6% last year. They're having this is the worst collapse in Venezuela of any nation, in an emerging market. This is the worst collapse. This is according to The Economist. I heard this earlier today. But let's move back to this article here. Besides Cairo, by the way, Cairo, isn't that Egypt? So Egypt isn't on this list. Egypt not on the list either. Okay, that's a Muslim majority nation too. So again, it's not. This list isn't like just all the Muslim countries out there, all right? As I'm hearing the media talk about, they're like, oh my goodness, it's a Muslim ban. It's a Muslim ban. The article continues. Besides Cairo, it was not immediately clear whether other airports or countries listed by Trump had swiftly implemented the ban. Arab officials of the listed countries would not comment on the matter. The order seeks to prioritize refugees fleeing religious persecution, and move Trump separately said was aimed at helping Christians in Syria. So here's a question too. I'm hearing a lot of people on the left start complaining about the fact that Trump is trying to save Christians in Syria who are being slaughtered. They're being extinguished. It is a genocide that's happening. And these Christians are at no threat of being terrorists. That we don't see a large onslaught of Christian terrorists. It doesn't happen. So to have this exception, I think, is first of all a good thing. And again, I've already said in the past that I support Donald Trump on the measure of trying to prevent people from entering our country who come from, terrorist harboring nations. I personally think that we don't need them here. And again, as far as immigration is concerned, very first thing we have to acknowledge is that every nation on the earth has a right to say who comes into their country. Every nation. And I'm not for banning a religion. Absolutely against it personally. I think that violates our Constitution. I don't think that the president has a right to do that, nor do any politicians. But to not just ban a religion, because there's minutia here. This is a bunch of countries that they've listed here are cause for concern. All right, according to a 2016 law. That here, in fact, let me bring up the CNN article I found on this earlier here. Trump immigration ban. I think CNN will be the first one to pop up if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. Okay. So let's go to this here. Sorry, I got to find the part in the article here where they talk about. Oh, nope, not this article apparently. Let me go back. Got to be another one here. Oh, you know what? I have it on my phone. Let me bring it up. All right. Sorry, this is live radio. This is what happens on live radio. Okay. Let's see. Trump's latest ban, banning 7 countries and more. Here we go. All right. Sorry, this is really not in front of me here. I wanted to have this ready here. Okay, here we go. The countries were named in a 2016 law concerning immigration visas as countries of concern. And the reason why they're countries of concern is because they have been known to harbor terrorists, and they've been known to have terrorist activity. So Donald Trump wasn't even in office in 2016. Just FYI. Donald Trump wasn't responsible for compiling this list. This list came from elsewhere. So, all right, Natasha on Twitter says, here's countries outside the USA where Trump, as a businessman, has businesses at numbers per country. Okay, let's see. Bring it up here. I don't know. Okay, this looks like it's from CNN. Okay, so India, Indonesia, Canada, UAE, UK, Scotland, China, Brazil, Panama, Saudi Arabia. So he's got some dealings in Saudi Arabia. Ireland, Israel, Qatar, Dominican Republic, Egypt. That could be another reason why it's not on the list. Georgia, Mexico, Philippines, South Africa, Turkey, Uruguay, Bermuda, and Argentina. Okay. Trump has 2 businesses in Egypt, she says, 2 in Turkey and 8 in Saudi Arabia, and didn't ban them while they have terrorists. Okay, yeah, well. Okay, oh, by the way, I want to mention here from Natasha. She's saying, while I understand we need oil and gas for now, but time to work on the alternative. Hemp can replace gas and other things. First of all, I could not agree with you more about hemp, industrialized hemp. I'm a huge advocate of that. But personally, I think we don't just need to just pick one. We need to try to get as many different kinds of energy alternatives as possible. And I don't think that the government should be incentivizing this and picking winners and losers. I think that the free market will find the way. The free market will find what is the best method of production, what is going to create the most wealth and energy in the process, and what's going to be the simplest for them. And they'll pick that. And as other alternatives pop open, and if as long as we're not restricting and limiting businessmen and women and people in industry, if we're not limiting them from trying these alternatives, then they'll be free to go through and make those decisions for themselves. Again, the free market will find a way. And what is the free market? The free market is you. It's me. It's everybody. It's you as a consumer making a smart and educated decision about the products you buy. You know, the kind of business that you do as an entrepreneur. The choices that you make. Everybody makes individual choices. You make choices that you think are right for you, and other people make choices that they think are right for them. And some choices are good, some choices are bad, but that's the free market. The free market will correct itself. It will always find a way. People will have that self-incentive to make their life better, and they'll find a way to do that, to accomplish their goals. The other way is central planning, and central planning emphatically does not work. It emphatically has been proven to fail time and time again. And in the process, it also gives the government control over every aspect of your life. And moreover, in addition to that having control, one person, one central body, one governing body cannot possibly, or even multiple bureaucracies cannot possibly make better decisions than the free market can about what's best for you. Only you know what's best for you. Only you are capable of making those decisions. But I digress. Let's go back to this Trump ban thing. I know we're kind of bouncing off the walls here today. So the article continues. It says he was talking about the Christians in Syria. That led some legal experts to question whether the order was constitutional. One group said it would announce a court challenge on Monday. The Council on American Islamic Relations, this is CARE, by the way, you all may be familiar with CARE, said the order targeted Muslims because of their faith, contravening the U.S. Constitution right to freedom of religion. Okay, so let's also just point out, if we're really going to talk about the Constitution, which I think it's comical that the left would point out the Constitution, and CARE would point out the Constitution, considering they're pro-Sharia law, which is anti-everybody's rights, and essentially, government ruled by religion. So they're setting up little religious fiefdoms through Sharia law. It's ridiculous. But more importantly, the Constitution, and just to be clear, and I don't think this is the limits of natural law, but the Constitution itself applies to U.S. citizens. It applies to U.S. citizens. If we're banning a religion, even if we were banning a religion from people from Muslim-related countries, okay, even if we're calling it that, if we're going to say we're banning Muslims from entering the nation, all right, that ban of their religion doesn't violate the Constitution, I think, because they're not U.S. citizens. They don't have the protection of the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution does not apply to everybody. Now, it violates natural law, clearly. Clearly, it violates natural law. But a nation does have a right to choose who comes into their nation. So if they don't want Muslims, they have a right to do that. I think it's not a smart move. I don't think it's a smart move to just say you're not going to allow any Muslims, especially let's say you round them up and put them in internment camps or deport them or whatever. No, I don't support that. No, I do not support that, especially if they're already U.S. citizens. That definitely violates the Constitution. Now, personally, I as far as immigration, I absolutely don't think that we need to be taking immigrants from Syria, from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq, Iran. A lot of these nations that have, well, let's face it, a lot of terrorism. I don't think that Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen have the best picks for us to take. Again, the way I look at immigration, it should be headhunting. We should be doing it like a business would be doing it. We want to take all of the best people in the world and give them a job interview. You want to come to America? Come to America. That's great. Bring something to the table. What do you offer? What are you offering? What are you going to bring? You got a business in your foreign nation now, and you want to bring it to America? You want to be an entrepreneur and just start an American business here? Something that you've already got internationally going? Great. Bring that business. Bring that job. You want to produce stuff here in America? Great. You don't have a plan? You don't have any skills? Sorry. You want to come here and get on welfare? Sorry. No. We want the cream of the crop. We want people who are going to create jobs here, or people who are going to fill jobs that we desperately need filling. Let's say, for example, we need nurses. Let's go hire some nurses. Let's go look out in the world for foreigners who want to come here, want to have the most prestigious citizenship in the world, the most sought after citizenship in the world, American citizenship. You want to come here to America? Great. What do you offer? Do you have a skill set we need? If you do, great. Come on in. You going to create a job here? Great. Come on in. You want to just come over here and mooch off of us? No. Sorry. Now, I think there is some things that we could do as far as refugees. I think there's nothing wrong with taking in, for example, I think Christian refugees, because the vetting process is a lot simpler in this situation. It's so much harder to take refugees who have no paperwork. We can't prove a history. We have no background, and all we have is during the vetting process in many of these situations is people who are taking. We're basically taking secondhand accounts. We're taking somebody's word for it that this person is not a terrorist, which unfortunately is not good enough. There's a real problem inside Islam, and I'm not saying that all Muslims are bad, but this religion needs a reformation. This religion needs to decide that Sharia law is immoral. It is immoral to hurt people and to take their stuff. Violates the non-aggression principle. It's immoral to force women to dress like beekeepers and rape them for showing their hair or skin. It's immoral to honor kill your daughter because she didn't bleed when she had sex for the first time with her husband. That's immoral. It's immoral to stone women to death for cheating on their husband, or allegedly cheating on their husband. It's immoral to kill homosexuals for merely being homosexual. That is immoral. These aspects of Sharia law are immoral, and any just society should oppose it. And any religion, i.e. Islam, should oppose it as well. They need to have their Reformation. Christianity had it. We used to do the whole convert or die thing in the Crusades. Now we don't. We had our Reformation. It's time for theirs. Now, in the meantime, again, I don't think that there's anything wrong with taking refugees that we know aren't going to pose a threat, like the Christians who are being annihilated over there. I think it's too risky to take Muslim refugees over there. Maybe a lot of people disagree with me on that. I personally don't care. I just think it is a very foolish thing to do, to take refugees from Syria or other Muslim nations when ISIS, for example, they've already said and shown that they've done this, that they were going to infiltrate the refugee programs. They've already done it. And it's important to note that these refugees, as you know what, here, I'll play a clip here. I want to play a clip from this lawmaker. He's a Democrat. He's talking about how Trump's Muslim ban, this immigration ban, excuse me, I'm using their terminology now, is disgusting. Here's a clip.
The executive order signed by President Trump is discriminatory on religion, and frankly quite disgusting. It is also counterproductive. The expressed intent is to...
By the way, this is Gerald Nadler. He's a representative out of New York, a Democrat.
...protect the United States against terrorists. But the fact of the matter is, not a single terrorist incident since before 9/11 has been caused by anyone from any of the 7 countries that the president named.
Oh, that was a... You guys hear the wordsmithing on that? What? What the hell just happened? Okay. Not a single person on this list or from these countries since before 9/11 has committed an act of terrorism. Before 9/11. Okay. Why are you excluding everything after 9/11? That's kind of important time right there. The last, 15 years? Kind of important, right? Kind of a big deal. We're just going to ignore everything. And to include 9/11 since before 9/11? Does that mean we're not including 9/11?
By contrast, a country like Saudi Arabia, which produced most of the attackers on September 11th, is not covered by this order. Secondly...
And again, that's something that I pointed out as well. And again, they're not going to go after Saudi Arabia. I highly doubt, unless Donald Trump really is trying to just destroy the petrodollar, which again, if he does, it's going to cause all sorts of economic turmoil, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's a Ponzi scheme. It has to crash eventually, and it will. But I mean, he's going to get the blame for it. Again, I've been saying. You break it, you're going to have to own it. You break the system, Donald Trump, and the left will force you to own it. And wouldn't this be just like the greatest setup in the world, where they put up a terrible candidate, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump wins, he's the last one holding the hot potato, and he gets the blame for all of the economic turmoil, the worldwide economic collapse that is to come. And then we never have another Republican in office. Wouldn't that be something? I hope I'm wrong about that.
The refugees who have valid visas, the president said he wants extreme vetting. We've been doing extreme vetting. For years, we've been doing vetting. All these refugees have been examined and their bona fides looked into and their records looked into for an average of 2 years. 2 years by American authorities. The person who was held and was released this morning, finally released this morning, who was detained overnight, Hamid Darwish, was a marked man in Iraq because he served as an interpreter and worked with American troops. He helped the U.S. Army for years. He is not a potential terrorist. So it is counterproductive.
And let's also point out that personally, I don't agree with that as far as banning people from coming in who aren't going to be a threat. If somebody has, again, it should be some kind of process here. Obviously, due process for American citizens. And I don't think that if you have a citizenship, first of all, you should be allowed to come here. And I've been in favor of giving citizenship to many of the people who who fought alongside of us. I've heard several stories of these interpreters in Iraq who were sponsored by the people who worked with them, and they had there's so many situations where these interpreters have saved the lives of our U.S. men and women over there. So these are servicemen and women. So I think those people ought to be granted American citizenship. That's my personal opinion, and I don't think they should be banned. And there should be, in this process, if we're going to just say we're going to put a stop here, a hold on anybody coming from these places, there should be some kind of appeal process, obviously. Anyway, he continues.
Is ridiculous, and it discriminates on the basis of religion, because Christians from these countries are allowed in. Only Muslims from these countries are not, and that goes against every ounce of our tradition from George Washington onward, and it doesn't help protect the United States.
Okay, so that's his opinion. He's entitled to his opinion. I think that it actually does help protect the United States. We have some action on Twitter. Natasha on Twitter says Christians don't equal safe. Look at American Christians who do school shootings every month, even if they may not do in the name of God. So, Natasha, look, respectfully, I disagree with you, and in fact, I don't see school shootings every month, and I certainly don't see school shootings every month by American Christians. We don't have a jihadi Christian problem here in America. We're not. It may be portrayed that way. I know Natasha's from Canada, so I understand where you're coming from. You're outside looking in, but we don't have a Christian radicalism problem here in America. The only religion that is blowing people up, killing people in the name of their religion in America right now is Islam. There's very few and far between incidences of radical Christians trying to kill people. Now, there was one a while back ago that was attributed to that. Somebody shot up a Planned Parenthood or shot at a Planned Parenthood or something. I can't remember the story, but these are so few and far between. If you're getting the impression that every month there's a school shooting in America by some kind of Christian in the name of their God, or even not in the name of their God, that's just not the facts. It's not true. And please, if you have any stories on that, if you think I'm wrong, please correct me. Call me out. I'm not above being corrected. So, but again, I look for these kind of things. I live, eat, sleep, breathe this kind of stuff. So it's just not happening. And if it were, the media would be having a heyday with it. A heyday. But there is, on the other end of the coin there's a big Islamic radical problem. There's an issue with radical Islam. Not all Muslims are bad, but the ones who want to kill us, they are. And we ought to not let them in our country. And I don't have any problem with preventing people from coming to our country who have a country of origin that has an issue with terrorism. I don't want to bring in terrorists. I don't want to import terrorists, which is exactly what's going on in Europe right now. It's not going to lead to good things if we don't stop that. I think this overall is a good thing. But I digress. So let's also point out here, I feel like this is important to talk about because the lefty media, they're not going to mention this. This is an article on townhall.com. This is a friendly reminder that Obama selected the list of Muslim countries in Trump's executive order. This article is written by Matt Vespa, dated January 29th, that is today. As the left and some Republicans lose their minds over President Donald J. Trump's executive order on immigration, let's not forget that the list of concerned countries that the Trump administration outlined in the order is based on the one signed into law by the former Obama administration. So it looks like the Obama White House set the groundwork. According to the draft copy of Trump's executive order, the countries whose citizens are barred entirely from entering the United States is based on a bill that Obama signed into law in December 2015. Where were those protests? Where were those outraged people in the streets? If it's racist to call these countries of concern and to try to prevent people from coming here, well, Where's the outrage for Obama? Obama signed the Visa Waiver Program Improvement in Terrorist Travel Prevention Act as part of an omnibus spending bill. The legislation restricted access to the Visa Waiver Program, which allows citizens from 38 countries who are visiting the United States for less than 30 days to enter without a visa. Though outside groups such as the American Civil Liberties Union and the NIAC Action, the sister organization of the National Iranian American Council, opposed the act, the bipartisan bill passed through Congress with little pushback. At the initial signing of the restrictions, foreigners who would normally be deemed eligible for a visa waiver were denied if they had visited Iran, Syria, Sudan, and Iraq in the past 5 years or held dual citizenship from one of those countries. Was that racist? Was that anti-Muslim? In February 2016, the Obama administration added Libya, Somalia, and Yemen to the list of countries one could not have visited, but allowed dual citizens of those countries who had not traveled there access to the visa waiver program. Dual citizens of Syria, Sudan, Iraq, and Iran are still ineligible, however. So, in a nutshell, Obama restricted visa waivers for those 7 Muslim majority countries: Iraq, Iran, Syria, Sudan, Somalia, Libya, and Yemen. And now Trump is looking to bar immigration and visitors from the same list of countries. The article reads here, "Yet I don't remember the left freaking out over this. I certainly don't remember them going indiscriminately insane when the Obama White House stopped processing Iraqi visas for 6 months in 2011 when, surprise, al-Qaeda operatives feigned refugee status to get relocated to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and yes, some of the visa applicants who were screwed over worked as intelligence assets and interpreters for the U.S. military, according to ABC News. But remember, there was a Democrat in the Oval Office, so it was okay at the time. Here's the text of the order. Via the Atlantic, this is what it will and will not do. Most importantly, the publication adds that this technically isn't a Muslim ban, as people from Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim country, can still visit the country. Who's affected? For 120 days. The order bars the entry of any refugee who is awaiting resettlement in the United States. It also prohibits all Syrian refugees from entering the United States until further notice. Additionally, it bans the citizens of 7 countries, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, Libya, and Yemen, from entering the United States on any visa category. This appears to include those individuals who are permanent residents of the United States, i.e. green card holders, who may have been traveling overseas to visit family or for work, though their applications will be considered on a case-by-case basis, a senior administration official said Saturday. Is this a Muslim ban? Technically, no. The ban includes 7 majority Muslim countries, but by no means are these states the most populous Muslim countries, nor are they among the top sources of Muslim immigration to the U.S., nor have they produced terrorists in the same numbers as other Muslim countries not on the list. So, it's not really a Muslim ban, and the nations on that Trump listed and the nations that Trump listed are the ones that were drafted by Obama. So, look, I think it's important to note. I think we should at least throw that out there. If you don't like it, you could throw it back. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and cut to our last commercial break of the day. When we come back, we're going to dive right into some other featured topics. You don't want to go anywhere.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mack store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bare Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On The Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On The Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
This is Dan Sandini of DaylightDisinfectant.com, citizen journalist, friend of the late Andrew Breitbart, and cohort of James O'Keefe. I listen to On the Move with Mack Worley because the only time he's wrong is when he disagrees with me.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Welcome to On the Move.
All right, we're back. So, I just feel like this nation is really divided right now, and there's a lot of stuff going on that I think a lot of people just aren't informed on the issues. A lot of people, I don't know, it feels like everyone's gone crazy lately. Does it seem like that to you? Yeah, I made this post on Facebook. This was today, about 5 hours ago. I asked, anyone else feeling like everyone has gone a little crazy? Fritz says, way more than a little. Tony says, most people have gone full-blown batshit. Another Tony says, we're never going to survive unless we get a little crazy. Yes, indeed. We crossed the little crazy threshold 2 months ago. Valerie says, yeah, just a little. Josh says, it's probably Facebook doing another study. Rick says, it's actually a bit humorous. Carrie says, and yet for some odd reason, I have never felt so in control and cool-headed, LOL. Sam says, after visiting Seattle, yes, you wouldn't believe the experience I had there. Corey says, people are paying attention now more than ever. The executive branch issuing a dictate infringing on the due process and equal protection of certain groups of people will not be allowed by whatever means necessary. I wonder what that means. Sounds like he's not a big fan of the immigration ban. Doug says, I have a feeling nobody is able to read the EO for what it is. Aaron says, bro, this country has lost its marbles. Jay Allen says, every day, my friend. And then Dick, our good friend Dick Lepre, what happened is that a person who is out to change things significantly is now president, and people are not used to someone who operates at such a pace being president. So, first of all, great the response there, Dick. I certainly do appreciate that. I want to move on here to a topic that I feel should be first and foremost in our mind here. One thing, it should really be one of the main stories that's happening, but yet I haven't heard anybody talking about this. This is an article from TechCrunch.com. The article is written by Kate Conger and written January 27, 2017. Article is titled, Twitter Releases National Security Letters. Now, this is a very important story, so please pay attention to this in particular. Over the last 8 months, tech companies have slowly been revealing that they've received national security letters from the Federal Bureau of Investigation that forces the firms to secretly disclose user data to the government. Today, Twitter joins the ranks of Yahoo, Cloudflare, and Google by announcing it had received 2 national security letters, one in 2015 and one in 2016. The NSLs, those are national security letters, came with gag orders that prevented Twitter from telling the public or targeted users, or the targeted users about the government's demand. So they can't tell the public or the users that the government is getting all this data on them. The FBI recently lifted these gag orders allowing Twitter to acknowledge the NSLs for the first time. Although Twitter has disclosed these 2 letters and informed the targeted users, it's likely that the company has also received other NSLs that it's still gagged from discussing. TechCrunch recently revealed that although Cloudflare and Credo Mobile have published several NSLs, they have received others that remain secret. Twitter is currently suing the Department of Justice in an effort to speak more publicly about secret requests for user data. In the newly published NSLs, the FBI asked Twitter to turn over the name, address, length of service, and electronic communication transactional records of 2 users. Twitter Associate General Counsel Elizabeth Banker said that the company provided a very limited set of data in response to the request, but did not make clear exactly what kind of data Twitter provided. Twitter remains unsatisfied with restrictions on our right to speak more freely about national security requests we may receive. Banker wrote in a blog post, "We would like a meaningful opportunity to challenge government restrictions when classification presents speech on issues of public importance." So what is happening? The federal government is contacting a company and says, you have to provide this information on these users because of national security. They're obviously not telling them why. And more importantly, these companies aren't allowed to even tell anyone that the government is secretly doing this. How do you feel about that? Does that make you comfortable? Do you think this is going to increase or decrease underneath the Trump administration? I would argue that it's going to increase. Why isn't this the top story of the day? Why are we more concerned about crowd sizes at the March for Life or Donald Trump's inauguration or the Women's March? Why are we concentrating on those things instead of talking about a clear violation of American privacy? Our government is spying on us. Our government is forcing companies to not only provide information without a warrant, but they're also doing it in making these companies remain silent about it. Violating, first of all, their right to speak, but second of all, not allowing users to know that their information is at risk of being sucked up by the feds. It's all secret. Let me just remind you all, this government was created by the consent of the people to protect life, liberty, and property. We've talked about this to infinitum. Life, liberty, and property. It can't violate life, liberty, and property because that's what it was created for. That was the whole reason it was created, to protect. This government was created to protect our rights. It can't violate them. And if it does, it's acting illegitimately. And moreover, if it's doing so without us knowing about it, if it's doing so secretly, how can we give our consent to that? How can we consent to something that we don't know is happening? I argue that the government is operating right now outside the consent of the people, outside of the bounds of our consent. And I fully disagree with this. I do not think that the feds should have any right to force a company to provide information unless they have a warrant, and it's saying the information that they're going to get, the places that they're going to look, and what can be seized. They don't have carte blanche to just search everybody anytime, whenever they want. We're not living in 1984. We have rights. It's not right. So, I want to play here I want to play a clip, but I can't find it. Let me see here. Oh, actually, before we do this clip, I actually want to read another article here that is, I think, foreshadowing things to come. Because I suspect that we're going to be more involved in Syria. We're going to be more involved in fighting overseas, period, fighting terrorists. I just believe that based on Donald Trump's persistent tagline that he's going to bomb the crap out of ISIS, I don't suspect he's going to allow them to continue operating overseas. So obviously we're going to have to be pushing out further. Now here's something that I think is, anytime you hear this, you need to really identify there's a red flag on the field here. Chemical weapons found in Mosul in ISIS labs, says Iraqi forces. This is an article on TheGuardian.com. The article was written on July. I'm sorry. I said it again. January 29th. This is today. Special forces say mustard agent and Russian surface-to-air missiles found in site setup in Nineveh. I don't know how to say that. Nineveh ruins. Iraqi forces have said they've discovered a mustard chemical warfare agent in eastern Mosul alongside a cache of Russian surface-to-surface missiles. Iraqi and U.S. officials have repeatedly warned of efforts by ISIS to develop chemical weapons. When Iraqi forces retook Mosul University this month, they found chemistry labs they believe had been converted into makeshift weapons labs. Iraqi forces showed journalists a tank of the chemical agent and a warehouse of more than a dozen surface-to-surface rockets bearing Russian inscriptions. Brigadier General Hadier Fadhil from Iraqi Special Forces said French officials tested the chemical this week and confirmed it was a mustard agent. We know that they are using this place to experiment with chemical weapons, he said, referring to ISIS. Fadhil did not specify the quantity or potency of the chemical, but Iraqi soldiers were able to visit the site for about 10 minutes without exhibiting symptoms of exposure. Fadhil says he believed the facility was set up in the Nineveh ruins, or Nineveh. Sorry, I can't say this stuff. An ancient site away from the city's dense neighborhoods to keep it secret from Mosul residents who might be passing information to Iraqi forces and the U.S.-led coalition. The number of casualties due to ISIS chemical weapons is a small fraction compared with the hundreds of civilians killed in car and suicide bombings carried out by the group. Experts say that is largely due to the low grade of the weapons and the group's lack of access to efficient delivery systems. The types of rockets found at the site suggest ISIS was attempting to weaponize the chemical agent, Fadhil said. He added that he believed the facility was being used up until just 1 or 2 weeks ago. Iraqi forces declared Mosul's eastern half fully liberated just over 3 months after the operation to retake the city from ISIS was formally launched in October. So, I want you to keep in mind that ISIS is potentially getting chemical weapons, or if you're conspiratorial minded, could be that we're just planting these things over here as a way for us to get involved. Again, our government has wanted to topple Assad, to topple Syria, their president, because he won't allow that Saudi pipeline to go through. Again, Bashar al-Assad is a Shia, or a sect of Shia, anyway. And the the Saudis are Sunnis, so they believe each other are apostates. They want to kill each other. They hate each other. And again, the Saudis are essentially our shill. They sell their oil in U.S. dollars. They enable the petrodollar to continue. If we can get that pipeline going from Saudi Arabia through Syria up through Turkey into Europe, we'll be providing we'll be in control of a vast share of the oil at that point. We'll be the petrodollar will be booming essentially, but they have to control it. That I believe is why they want Assad out of power. So these chemical weapons could be real, they could not be, but I do believe that this is foreshadowing more U.S. involvement in the Middle East. Chemical weapons. Anytime they start bringing this up, we start chomping at the bit to go over there. Or at least our politicians do. So, personally, I don't want us to be involved in another long, drawn-out war. I don't want us to have a war. I personally would like to get away from our dependency on foreign oil. I want us to become energy independent, unleash our free market, and see what new innovations can we create. And in doing so, I think that benefits us, first of all, our economy. Second of all, it benefits us technologically, because who knows what innovations will be created. But thirdly, it damages some of our enemies. For example, many people in the Middle East, they've been surviving on oil. They have these oil-rich nations. That's really their only benefit. is they have this vast sums of oil income. If we can find an alternative, if we can cut into that, even without setting a foot, on the ground overseas, we may be able to really damage their war-fighting capability, the ISIS in particular. I think that we can strategically bomb them, strike targets of opportunity, take out infrastructure that is critical to them, and in the process weaken the strength of oil to them, and reducing our dependency, which reduces the amount of money that they have to conduct terrorism. And maybe the requirement of them having to find something else will force them into a free market and force them to actually be productive instead of destructive. Again, I'm not speaking about everyone, but again, these nations, these countries around the world do have problems with terrorism. I think that the damage to their economy by us becoming energy independent will be beneficial to us, and that maybe it'll stop some terrorism from happening. Maybe it'll stop ISIS from being funded and capable of attacking us here at home, in conjunction with us, being more selective at who we allow in our nation. I think all of this makes sense, and in fact, this is very close to the Fabian strategy. I spoke about this a long time ago. The Fabian strategy. This is what I think his name was Fabian Flavius, something like that. He was a general in ancient Rome. I'm probably slaughtering his name, but Fabian. He had the strategy when Hannibal, the Carthaginian general, was attacking Rome, and this guy Hannibal was tricky. He was a tricky foe. He kept beating the Romans. He would fight them in situations that they weren't expecting to fight in. He would lure them into traps, and he kept beating them. Every time he would fight them, he would beat them. In Rome, he invaded, he was beating them. So what Fabian did is he enacted the Fabian strategy, where he hauled up in his bunker, basically, in these castles, and the Carthaginians, they didn't have the siege equipment to siege, so he basically starved them out. He scorched the earth, brought all the crops in, and they just stayed inside in their castles until the Carthaginians had to leave. This is what I believe is the proper response here to terrorism around the world. We isolate them, we starve them out, we blow up targets of opportunity, and we become energy independent, therefore damaging their income. I think it makes sense. I'd love to hear from you guys. But anyway, that's our show for today. If you liked what you heard today, or if you have anything you want to spawn, hit me up on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow, Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Don't forget to follow and like us over there. You can subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. I really would appreciate it if you would do that. If you've made it this far in the program, please smash the like button on whatever platform you're on. Give us a big thumbs up. I would certainly appreciate that. And Mack, you're the tip of the spear. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week. I really do appreciate your continued support. Don't forget to check us out on our website, our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. Click the shop link. We got hundreds of products on there for you. Lots of original design. Hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, phone cases for you as well. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I already said that. Subscribe on YouTube. All of it /OnTheMoveShow. All right. That's your show for today. I sure do appreciate you all tuning in. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.